this season, I am sitting down with some of the most extraordinary individuals in New York City. And I want to continue to do that. But for us to be able to do that, we need you to be part of the community. So please do subscribe, like, and share this video, because that way we're going to continue to bring you all of the action right here on The Vuyo Show. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for watching The Vuyo Show. We have such an incredible installment in store for you today. And as I said, we are bringing you some of New York City's most finest guests. They are building something extraordinary. And I wanted to have a conversation with them for you to be clued in on what exactly it takes to build something extraordinary in this city. Now, today's guest is doing exactly that. She has been born and raised in New York, but has gone on to do something that I think you need to know about. Ladies and gents, I'll let her do the intros for herself. Please help me welcome onto the show serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, Crystal Ferguson. Ooh. Let's pretend there's a studio audience here. Yeah. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. Doing well.
You look good.
Thank you. I feel good.
Yeah.
So, when you look good, you feel good, you do good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for joining me on the show. I mean, as I said in the intro, there's so many people in the city. New York City has such a vibrant energy, vibrance and energy about it that makes you wonder who the next person standing next to you is.
Yeah.
And you never know who they are, right? And we met at CultureCon Cafe quite recently, and I was like, the lady with the pixie. Who is she? Right? But those conversations for me, I think, are so integral for us to have about what it really takes to build something incredible in the city. So you've had your journey, and we're going to unpack all of it and lay it on the table here today, and really get to bring the audience in on what it takes to build, and you're going to share your journey with us.
Yeah.
So let's kind of diverge straight into it and ask you the question, what are you building in New York City?
Yeah, I'm building a number of things. Yeah. I'm a multi-hyphenate. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and now I live in New Jersey, but I'm in New York pretty much 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So I'm building and continuing to build my luxury transportation company called Elegant Chauffeurs. And we serve the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And we've been in business for the past 9 years. And so it's black car service with the hospitality touch, white glove service. And we serve a plethora of people. And it's been an honor, really, to serve my mobile guests in that capacity. And we have a 100 driver network. Oh, wow. So we're pretty large, and we're able to dispatch and do particular events, weddings, funerals, celebrity events, the Met Gala, the New York Fashion Week. So we have partnerships all over the place, and we've been developing a model that's going to transition into more membership. So there's a lot of perks that will be involved for different hospitality partnerships that we have. Right now we're gearing up for the World Cup, so it's a busy time.
Yes, I can imagine.
It's a busy time. So that's one endeavor. I also run and co-founded a nonprofit organization called Loving You Into Freedom, and it serves justice-impacted families who are navigating incarceration, and giving them wellness resources as well as tangible resources so that way they could go through that journey from a whole place. I also have a personal, professional, and leadership development agency called Created to Inspire. Yeah. And I work with small business owners, nonprofit leaders as a consultant and strategist. I'm a former high school guidance counselor. So I have a lot of resources that I love to share with people, and I realize that adults need guidance counselors too. So I serve as a coach in that capacity. But being from this city, you are always seeing some kind of need and wanting to fulfill that. And so those are my 3 umbrellas. But just the hustle culture that comes with being a New Yorker is very much embedded in my spirit and how I operate. But moving to the other side of the water in Jersey allows me to slow down and kind of like just take some rest, because when you're in this city and in it, there's a level of like just 24/7 buildup that's in your body that won't allow you to rest.
Yeah.
And so moving 3 years ago really was like a game changer for regulating my nervous system. But that's my introduction and a couple of things I got going on.
I mean, it's all three things that I think are exemplary to packaging who you are. Because as you're sharing all that you're sharing, I'm now starting to have and again, to disclaimer to the audience, everything I'm hearing today is the first time. So we are learning this together, right? And I was intentional about doing that because I wanted that fresh approach and for me to learn with them, so that it's kind of like an interaction that I'm having with you with the audience at the same time. Yeah. But I'm kind of then understanding the framework of who you are as an individual, because those are three different brackets that all serve different things, but that show the multiplicity of who you are as an individual. And I'm curious about the first endeavor that you kind of shared, which is a luxury, service. How did you bump your way and find your way into that space? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, it's interesting. I struggle with how it came about, because I feel like there are three different routes as to how it started. How it started officially was I was a high school guidance counselor, and they cut my salary. And so I didn't want to quit immediately. So I was like, all right, let me figure out how to supplement my income. So I went to the Uber office, did all the things, became certified with my TLC license, which is the Taxi Limousine Commission in New York City. You have to go through a driving school. You have to pass a test, background check. It's very different from any other state in the country. Yeah. You can't just become an Uber and Lyft driver here. You go through a very extensive process, and they give you a window to complete that. So I completed that. And when I started driving Uber, December 31st, 2016, I remember my first passenger was a woman. She was like, oh my gosh, a woman. And it was so exciting. And I was like, oh my God, this is my first ride, And I was driving a Toyota Camry. And that week, I probably made like $5,000 in that 1 week. Wow. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I would do Ubering after work, but I was just like, this is very new for me. And then you could cash out the same day. I was like, oh, this is another arena. And of course, they had their incentives at the time that boosted bonuses and things like that. But every woman that came into my vehicle asked me for my number. And they were like, do you do private rides? So I was like giving out my number. And then I said to myself, you have to start something. Because it's clear and evident of what's needed. And so that's when I incorporated January 10th, 2017. Elegant Chauffeurs was born. But I feel like why I said there are two other inceptions is because in 2009, one of my mentors invited me to an event, and she sent me a black car. And I was like, oh, this is nice. This is
elegant.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, I'm in a backseat. And that was one introduction. And then in 2010, January, I actually had the privilege of serving as an intern for the White House. And that was spring 2010. I was one of the interns. And the host family that I was staying with on my first day of my internship, he couldn't take me to the White House. So he sent a black car. And I was just like, okay, I can get used to this. And so I learned both sides, what it felt like. And then being a driver and being able to offer prestige to people, I upgraded my car maybe 5 months after driving Uber because I saw another woman driving a truck. And I was like, is that yours? And she said, yes. That's all I needed to know. I said, oh, I'm getting a truck. So I hustled, put down my deposit on my first Suburban. And the minute I did that, my clients converted to more high, net worth individuals because that's what they were demanding. And I do have a hospitality background, so I infuse that tremendously into my work as a chauffeur operator.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just intrigued because you never know the things that you go through, what they're meant to serve.
Correct.
Right? Because every detail that you're explaining was all interlinking into this one thing. And what I'm finding so interesting about you is that you very much specifically remember dates and times for every single... I don't know if that someone has said that to you before, but I'm like, girl, you mentioned all the dates and the time.
Yes. I didn't realize, but I do have pattern recognition that. I remember dates. I remember numbers. I don't know what it is. That might be a gift of some sort.
It's a great gift to have because it gives context as well to someone who's listening to be like, okay, so this date and that date, because now I know it's been 10 years of your business because you gave us the date of its inception, right? So that kind of kind of shapes the picture a little bit. So you find yourself, or rather, you're brought into this world because it's not something that you went out to pursue intentionally, but it came to you. At what point then do you decide that I'm going to get into this entrepreneurship thing fully, and kind of left the school guidance career and put yourself into the business?
Yeah, so I incorporated 2017, and I gave in my resignation in February 2018. So I closed out the school year 2018, and then I went full time into my transportation company.
And for someone who's like, as a woman, this kind of that kind of world and space could be, I wouldn't even say it's a gender thing, but as a woman who is confident, as you said as well in Uber, people are like, oh my God, I've not seen a woman in this space before. So how did you navigate that kind of perception shifting for when someone does kind of inquire those services to say, I am the one leading this pack and we are going this direction?
Yeah, it changes. Sometimes I say that I'm the owner of the company. Sometimes I don't. Well, that was in the past, but I would feel out people's energy. Yeah. Sometimes people naturally would come into the vehicle and say, thank you, sir. And then I turn around and I remind them, no, lady, But there are, at the time, I don't know the statistics now, but at the time, only 5% of all New York City taxi drivers were women. And so it was a very small population. I would see the same women pretty much all the time because it was only a few of us. And so now, even when I'm driving, I'm like counting, like, oh, there's another one. All right, I'm seeing a little bit more. But just navigating this space, I think I penetrated with a level of service and a level of class that most people don't really have access to. There's something about the feminine touch when it comes to hospitality. There are just certain nuances that are like game changers that I add on. And so as a result of that, I've also created a chauffeur school to kind of train people on the model, because sometimes I can't do the ride, right? But I want that if you do use my service, the drivers are trained on like our elegant standard, and then we're able to still provide the best hospitality service that you will experience. So.
Again, back to that point of everything that you go through serves a point to some degree, because hospitality being something that you had done, now playing a role into ensuring that what you're creating has an elegance touch to it or a difference to it, which someone who might have not had that and running the same business might not have that attention to detail because they didn't have that experience. Right. And what would you say are some of those points of references that make your business different, right? You mentioned the feminine touch, that hospitality background, but what are some of the other things that you would say these make us different as a business?
Yeah, a couple of things. So we always do a concierge call to our clients beforehand to kind of get a gauge of what the experience they're going to be doing, if it's a girls' night out, if it's a wedding, if it's a funeral, and just learn who we're serving that day and then customizing accordingly. So recently I had a couple of women who were over 60 and they were doing a girls' day out to a museum and to a dinner, but they wanted champagne on board. And so I was like, okay, they're going to be drinking on board. So I customized some glasses for them to have some flutes, put their names on it. And then I also had pastry boxes that were made for them, because I'm like, you don't want to be tipsy and don't have any, nothing in your stomach. So just those things that add on to the experience, but catering to, okay, clearly they're going to be drinking. Yeah. So let's create something sweet, nothing too heavy. And then I did a influencer trip recently, and we customized the vinyl to put on the Sprinter. And so it served as a marketing tool to help let people know that the brand is on board.
Yeah.
And so it really depends on what is needed in that moment. Some people value not having any kind of signage or anything, and we respect that as well. We operate with the utmost discretion.
Yeah.
We have our drivers sign NDAs because people are closing deals behind the scenes and utilizing the car service as a way of like business transactions, you know? And so you come across a lot of information in your ears, but you don't want that converted on social media or anything like that. And so making sure that our drivers also aren't like fangirling or fanboying over somebody that they're driving, because we do drive prominent people, but it's like maintain your professionalism, always share if they ask what you do, what your background is, and have organic conversation.
Yeah.
We don't gatekeep and say, oh, you only can say you work for us. We treat all of our drivers like partners that they are. Most of them have their own business, and so we're like, you might be utilizing Elegant Chauffeurs as your platform today, but feel free to, you know, make your relationships accordingly. So our touch is very much meet the client where they are and just helping serve in that capacity. So I meant to tell you another thing that we have added to our service is executive protection. So if people need security, we are able to provide it in car or outside.
And these are all, it kind of really, for me now, getting to understand that you've thought about every single detail.
For sure.
You know, and the touch points of the business that make it stand out in its own way, but also you think about the client in mind and what their needs are in order to serve them. Now, building in New York is something that is very daunting for a lot of people, right? It's like anyone around the world, if they were to build something here, they see it as a dream, as a, you know, this ultimate goal. For you, building in New York, what are some of those kind of like consequential things that you found are very essential and important that you've had to, you know, imply and put in order for you to have something successfully built here?
Rejection is necessary.
Ooh,
and I think people get rejected a lot, but they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
New York will teach you how to handle it, but you could break or you could bend and be fluid with it. And so in one of my previous eras, I was working with another nonprofit, and we had to do some like street kind of like fundraising. And so we had our script, and we would have to say, hi, we're here from this organization looking, and some people stopped, but many people were just like, no. And there was a video of me that I found the other day of me like facing rejection head on and just being like, okay. And then I was on to the next person. And I think that level of perseverance and to still be rejected with a smile and just move on. Because sometimes you try to hold on to energy that is like, it's not going to work. And knowing that, like, if somebody's interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. Yeah. So in building relationships, so if they're mean to you, maybe you don't actually want to work with them either, you know? So just taking the lessons in stride, but just knowing the toughness comes from pushing through the no's, because you will get to a yes somehow. And I think New York fortifies that build up, that muscle, and it should encourage you, because I think this is one of the best. No, it's the best city to live in, to thrive in, to work in, but you got to know how to work it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are intimidated, even if they are born and bred in New York, they haven't stepped outside of maybe like a certain radius, but you'll be surprised who you meet in a library, in a cafe, on a plane, in a car. But you just got to be comfortable with saying, hey, my name is... what's your name? What do you do? Like, I like something about you, and just get it. So many business ideas, relationships could flow just through that conversation. Like, look at what you've produced right here. We met 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I was like, hey, let's have a conversation. He was like, come on my podcast, you know? Yeah. That was one interaction that we had. Yeah.
Probably less than 5 minutes, I think.
And look at this. And it's going to produce fruit. So it's just like, you never know. This is the city where dreams happen, but it's also where dreams die if you let it. Yeah. So
And let's talk about the idea of relationship building, because especially for a business like yours, where it is the foundation of it all, right? And why is it important, and how do you maintain and sustain those relationships to ensure that you are continuing, to grow and build and make the business and the brand that you're building to become what it's meant to become?
Yeah, I think for a while it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
My business model. And it worked, but it wasn't consistent because most of my clients didn't live in New York. So they would just come and I'd be the first contact that they would have. But then COVID happened. And then I was like, okay, we need to shift this.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get insight from a client, right? He was the one that actually, I had one ride with him. And he's a retired former NFL player. And he was like, what do you think about New Jersey? Like, you could be closer to Teterboro Airport where all the private aviation is. And I was just like, okay. And then I talked about it with my partner. The next month we moved.
Wow.
And it was that, like, just one conversation. Again, I have this whole theory about one conversation. Yeah. But that conversation led to him introducing us to an executive director of a bank that introduced me to a pitch competition that was happening. And I applied to the pitch, did the pitch, won the pitch. It was my first pitch ever. Yeah. And I was just like, okay. And that was what allowed us to invest and start converting our fleet into a more sustainable fleet. So we have electric vehicles on our fleet. But just that one conversation, relationship, and just nurturing that helped create another relationship where information was given. And for that whole time, I fully funded my business. I never got a loan, never got a grant until that moment. And that was 7 years in. Yeah. And that developed a corporate relationship with that same bank. We started transporting their executives to work 2 to 4 times a week. And that was because of the relationship and building and learning what the needs are of corporate. So that opened up a whole nother model for me to really make an approach so I can have that consistency, but then develop a pathway for other drivers to be able to have sustainable income, because now it's not just an airport. It's actually, this is your client for the week. For the week, yeah. And, it allows so much freedom and less anxiousness for people to not know what's going to happen, but giving more security in that way.
And in a service business, right, that is about relationships and is about maintaining all of that. For you, starting out, right, you said that you hadn't taken any funding, you hadn't taken a loan. How do you build something in a city like New York without any funding? How did you go about 7 years of doing that?
You make the money. The good thing about driving is even during COVID, it didn't fail because transportation was essential. And so it never stopped. Yeah. It was just, how do you approach it this time? But like I said, the first week that I drove Uber, I was making $5,000. Yeah. And I was like, oh, all I have to do is just be on the road. So I used to set a daily goal of $300, and then that was $9,000 a month, So I was able to calculate certain things. I was very tired at the time. I didn't have good eating habits. So I had to make some changes, because I started to become addicted to the money, and I was not taking care of myself. So I was like, okay, let's create some kind of support around being healthy. So yeah, just bootstrapping essentially, but it wasn't hard. I just found a really good vehicle to be able to do that.
And I think also someone who might be starting a business or brand that is a product business, they could be in a different situation like yours, because yours the business funds the business, right? So it could be a different conversation for someone who is starting a skincare line or a makeup brand, or, is selling some sort of product where they need the funding up front. Whereas, yours is a sustainable business, which is, I guess, the beautiful thing about that, your business, would you say, the fact that it's been able to sustain this long because of the model that it has?
I would say so. But even if somebody was starting a skincare brand, they wouldn't need funding,
And how
start.
so? Yeah.
So I would always suggest, because like I told you, I offer strategy, and we're in a time of AI. So you can create a prototype, a visual prototype, and use that as leverage to pitch to different organizations, businesses that might say, hey, I would love to get $100 from you. Could you refer me to 2 other people that would also give me $100 to take this off the ground? But AI can help at least build out what it looks like. So now you're not just explaining away. And then you can build prototypes from few funds. Yeah. And I think most people don't do the cost analysis to see what it really costs to create a product, and at least create a sample. So that way you don't spend a whole bunch of money, get a whole bunch of loans, and then you perfect it to the point where now it's in market, and then you're like, it's not selling because you didn't do like market research. So know what it costs just at the very basic level of just, utilize what you got. Use whatever free resources. If it's skincare, go to the farmer's market and get aloe. If you're doing aloe and honey and you're saying like, okay, I'm making this natural mix here and I'm adding this lavender scent to it. It doesn't have to cost much to start, but how you present it, it's all about presentation, branding. But you just start with one. Yeah. And that one thing, like Milano de Rouge, Milan Harris, who has Milano de Rouge, she started with 2 T-shirts. And it has grown to such a huge brand. So it's like, just start with the smallest sample size that you got, and work that thing.
And I think that also changes the framework on how you should think about it.
Yeah.
Because when people think about New York, they think big, they think scale, they think grand, billboards, this and that. But the approach that you're sharing with us, even in your story as well, it was incremental, right? And it got to the point now where it is, not because in that moment you started it was that, but it had to grow and become that, right? And so I think it's such a different way of shaping and kind of approaching it from a mental standpoint.
For sure.
Yeah. And relationally, you shared that you had, you and your partner moved to Jersey. So now I'm learning that you have a partner. How do you manage and balance that out with building such a successful company in a city where, we are told that the dating is not possible here? It's like, it's not possible. You just grind. You shouldn't have a social life. What's your approach to that? Like, how do you navigate that as well?
Yeah, I think right now we're both like in still of a grind season. Yeah. So he has his HVAC company. He's also the co-founder of the nonprofit organization. He also has a fashion and education brand called Coolest Nerds and Learn in Style. And like there are just so many, I guess, parallels for what we're doing that we just support each other either way. And I think 2 hustlers deserve to be with each other at different levels. He might be up, I may be down, I might be up, he might be down, but it's still a balance that can help, maintain everything. I think right now there's been like a lot of like commentary online about like, don't trust this and that. It's like, no, you have to go in with the expectation that it will work and you attract your desires. You have to have like the right heart posture if you're really trying to find somebody and to build with. I was just having a conversation with my homegirl and she was saying like, these men got to figure out that the favor is when they find the wife. And sometimes it's true where like some guys will be like, yeah, I want to grind it out and then I'll find my lady. And it's like, boy, your favor might really be attached to the lady. So you might be hustling backwards in that sense. So I think just being open to love in whatever form it comes. And I think our love story is a whole nother podcast episode. But we truly found love in a hopeless place, and we were able to build on that foundation. And so I think that's another thing that I've observed is that people don't want to build with each other. They just want to come as 2 houses. Fully made. And they don't want to go through any kind of like challenges or like pivots that you have to make. But that's the beauty. That's the journey. That's the fun part. So it's like, all right, if you got everything, then I could just buy this table, you know? But if we're planting seeds and going in the mud together and all of that, like that helps like strengthen the relationship. And I think people are scared of that. COVID probably is part of that, like distancing and I figured it out by myself and I'm comfortable, but get uncomfortable to build with somebody else as well, especially when you want a legacy and a family and all those things. So,
and I think we often, when we're talking about, you know, the grind and building and business, we don't necessarily have those conversations about the importance of building together or finding. And I think in New York, for me, when I think about how this notion that, oh, in New York, people don't fall in love, people don't have relationships, and I'm just like, this is the place where we should be meeting each other because we're all here to build. So this is the place where we should be meeting each other to build together. But it's the opposite way, right? And but that's a conversation for another day.
Another day.
But I like that we touch base on it as well. The nonprofit, right? I want to kind of touch base on that now and understand where that one comes from, because to have a passion for something like that, very specific to some degree, must mean something for you. So where does it stem from?
Where was it born?
Yeah.
Backstory, I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So I always wanted to be an attorney. I knew that I would have some kind of space within legal anything. And so I want to say, it was 2018. I learned that my partner was wrongfully convicted and he was in the middle of a sentence. And so we realized, like, navigating incarceration, a lot of families don't know how to do that, right? And the more I shared what we were experiencing and learning, we realized other families are going through that too, but there wasn't a community to help support that in a safe way where you're not being talked to as if you too are incarcerated. And so we were very intentional about becoming the wellness perspective for justice impacted families, and it has blossomed into programming that we have where families can purchase their groceries for their loved ones on the inside through us. We do transportation where we take families from New York City upstate on the weekends to see their loved ones, and that we are launching a violence and incarceration prevention program next month that's going to be led by my partner Enroy, for young men, called Meet 'em at the Stoop. So that way it allows them to get access to different careers, so that way they don't compromise their freedom. Because if you don't know how much the world has to offer to you, it's hard for you to kind of dream a little bigger. And so I'm in love with the initiative that he created. And so loving you into freedom is not just a mantra, but it literally is a teaching mechanism to tell people, like, you have permission to love somebody into freedom. Freedom from addiction, freedom from incarceration, freedom from mental incarceration, and just freedom from self-doubt, right? So it has blossomed. We have collegiate partnerships and programs and resources that we know that we can't do it alone, so we help families get in touch with organizations that are doing the work as well. So,
I love that there's a story attached to it, because, and for me, whenever I listen to someone who's starting impact work, because that is exactly what it is, it's impact work, right? Understanding and learning the why, because the why is then the reason that takes us further to the core of what it is, and then the impact will then drive even further. So it's interesting to hear that that's from a personal point of view to you wanting to kind of, and how do you build an organization in New York? Because I could also assume, I haven't done that, I haven't built it yet. So how is it different to building a business or an LLC or C Corp and an organization?
What I found is that it's not that different. So a nonprofit is a business with a different tax structure. You still have to have the business plan, the strategic plan. You have board members, which is your governance, similar to what you would have in your for-profit business. You're still looking for funding. So now it's heavy on the relationships, because what I help with nonprofit leaders, I'm saying you don't want to just go to someone and seem like you're begging for money. Nobody wants to feel like that. So you want to position yourself as a leader. You want to position yourself as a thought leader. And now you're asking for collaborators in this work to create impact. And I think I've learned so much. We've only been in, I guess, operating status for 3 years with our tax status. And I've just learned so much. Literally just now, I just took my first class. We got accepted into the New York City Mayor's nonprofit training program.
Nice.
So it's a 10-week program. And today was the first day. But I'm like, as I learn all these resources, I share them on LinkedIn. I share them everywhere because it's like, if I had this at the beginning, I'd be further along even more. So it's a matter of like just sharing information. And I realize in the nonprofit space, there is a lot of information. There's a lot of opportunity, but people just don't really know where it's at.
Yeah. And I can also imagine that the resources that you are able to learn and have acquired all of this time is what really is also, the connections and the relationships is what has helped make it as strong as it is today. That's incredible. I love that. And anyone who's watching at home, please support, the organization in any way, shape, or form. Now, to your third business, right, before we wrap up, I can imagine people hitting up and being like, Crystal, can you advise me on? Crystal, can you advise me on? And I would assume that that's how that business started because you had so many questions that you discovered that let me make this a business.
Yeah.
Because people wanted to get your what do they say? Can I grab 2 minutes of your time?
It was that. It was all of that. And I realized I do have a resource bank in my brain. Yeah. On my computer, I have tons of tabs open. I don't know if you guys have too. But I am an avid researcher. Yeah. And so I make several connections in my brain and I'm like, okay, this goes there. And then it's just holding. And I love the fact that our brains we have neuroplasticity because your brain can hold infinite wisdom, right? So, I think I want to say November, I did an Esther fast. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, of course.
3 days, no food, no water. Yeah. And I needed those 3 days because it reset my entire life. It restored my identity in God, and it allowed me to remove any labels or any things I came into agreement with, whether I knew it or not, to let those go and to restore my identity, because I knew that there was certain things that I had but I neglected. And then I was like, okay, I got to walk back into my authority. So just studying Esther during those 3 days and really like not having any food to eat and having to eat on the word of God, he reminded me of this agency that I created back in 2014. Wow. But I had it sitting there. Yeah. And he said, go back to what I started. And so I paid for the website again, refreshed everything, and just started offering free strategy calls on LinkedIn. And then at the end of the call, people were like, so how can I get more? And I was just like, oh, girl, you got to make some offers now.
This is a business. Yeah.
And I have about 20 clients recurring right now, monthly. And I'm just like, God, thank you, So Created to Inspire was something that I used to say at the end of every Facebook post that I used to write on the way to work. And it really has evolved into a strategic firm. Yeah. Just infusing personal, professional, and leadership development, because I do believe we were all created to inspire, and it's just a matter of how we look at things. Yeah. Just showing people a different angle to look at, because people get discouraged very easily, and I'm an encourager. Yeah. So I just... Yeah, people are like, how do you know all this information? I'm like, I just be reading stuff. I watch a webinar, at least one webinar a day. But I think it's important to know what's available to people. And the more people you serve, the more people will serve you. Yeah. Like it's very much like a cycle of like God's resources just coming together. So I just try to do my part.
Yeah. And when you serve, as you said, when you give, much is given back to you.
For sure.
And to our audience at home who are wondering which one is the estafette, it's not the one where you eat vegetables.
Oh, no.
That's the
No, you
Daniel.
eat nothing.
You eat nothing.
No, the Daniel fast is where
That's the nice one. It's like,
No, you eat nothing.
That's just for context. But that's beautiful. And what have you seen, like the through line, right? Because you work with people who are also, you know, in the discovery of business and brand and are growing something and are building something. So what would you say are some of those fundamentals that you've seen as a true line and consistent advice that you give to your clients that you think is incremental to hear?
Usually it's you don't need money to start. Because most people are like, I can't do this because I need the funding. You don't.
Yeah.
You need to create funding for yourself. Because what if you don't get the funding now?
Yeah.
So you're on halt for how many years? Because you're just waiting for funding, waiting. So how can you start? And I try to help people investigate ways to be creative. Like an example I use is for the nonprofit, we had an Impact Awards in January. Yeah. And we honored 3 people who have returned home from doing some incarceration time. Yeah. And they're doing such wonderful things right now. So we wanted to highlight them. So the awards, we got the awards. It was less than $150. Then we took them to a restaurant, told them that they could invite at least one person. Yeah. Then we had 4 staff people, and we paid for everything in terms of dinner. I printed like the menu. I printed their recognition stuff. I sent a notification to the mayor's office to get a recognition. Everything was under $1,000. Wow. And I was like, but sometimes people don't want to have a gala or anything because they're like, it has to cost $20,000. Actually, no, you have to be creative until you can build on that. And I think people miss the curiosity part. And I think that's the biggest opportunity for you to be able to grow and say, like, we started here, but look at what we could do. Because now that is an example of what we could do with 1,000. Imagine if we got sponsored with 10,000. Yeah. What we could do, how many people we could impact. And I think I just always show people, like, it's not money that you need. You just need to create something that can literally print money for you. So
I think that's such a key takeaway from this conversation as well. I think if anyone is wondering or second guessing themselves or, you know, trying to think, how can I make it happen? That is it. You've literally kind of shared the blueprint for us today on how to make that happen. Before we wrap up, you shared briefly about the Esther fast, and I was like, okay, girl is spiritually aligned.
Yes, yes, honey, yes.
And I was about to ask you how you stay grounded. I was about to get wrap this as a ribbon and a bow to say it's a crazy city, it's a crazy time. How do you, and you're running multiple businesses, you're a busy lady, but how do you keep grounded? And I think that's a conversation for me that I like to have above and beyond it all, because essentially we're human beings and we have a soul and a heart, and those need to be fed and fed into as well consistently so that we can be able to make these businesses. So how do you stay grounded and keep your wellness in check, your mental health in check, etc.?
Couple things. 2 years, tomorrow will make 2 years where I was taken to the hospital because it seems as if I was having a manic episode. And in the emergency room, they took my vitals and everything, tested everything. There was nothing in my system. But I was like at a heightened level of like awareness. It was scary. And it scared everybody around me. And only to find that I was dehydrated. But for maybe like a week straight, I kept waking up with all these ideas. And I went into overdrive trying to execute them all in one time. Like, I don't know why I felt so urgent. And I remember my partner, after I was released from the hospital, they were trying to diagnose me with all these things, and I was coherent. And so I didn't sign off on anything. I didn't want any medication. I just wanted the IV so I could be hydrated. That's it. And so it taught me that people sometimes get misdiagnosed or they have the potential, especially if you can't advocate for yourself. But I remember I needed rest. So my partner literally took all my phones. He was like, you need to go to sleep. And it's because for like a 7-day period, I would just only get like 3 hours a day. And it's like a drunkenness. And I was loud. I wasn't myself. And I remember writing down, like, God, I don't ever want to learn this lesson again. What do I need to do to make sure that this never happens to me? So now when I feel like the ideas are getting crazy, I'm like, all right, put the book down. Don't even write that now. Rest. And I developed systems that would allow me to rest. I only do certain things on certain days. So that way I can maintain that grounding and I'm not overwhelming myself. Because I am very gifted in certain areas, I know that I can do a lot, but I choose not to now, you know? And I think it's important for us to have boundaries with how much we do, how much we take on, and everything has its season. So I think God was just like, and you need to delegate. Because I thought I could do it all. And it's like, no, other people are capable too, you know? And so being a good steward of my leadership to say, okay, I think you would be great at doing this. And empowering people to do it and not micromanaging. And so I think I just had to develop systems that help me stay grounded. So, you know, I read my word every day, but I carry it in my heart. So in a lot of conversations, but I pace myself. I used to be really anxious, and I have let that go. You know, I don't let anything control my energy to the point where I'm moving too fast, where I could make mistakes. And so I think God has shown me through conversations, through interactions, to just slow down. And the wealthiest people that I drive, they move slow. And those are some of the cues that I pick up on, okay, wealth has a frequency of a reserved posture that you can't get on that frequency if you're clumsy or just forgetting things. You're not taking time to review things. You know, it reset me in a way that I needed, and I'm glad it happened that early, where there wasn't much to lose. Yeah. And I learned the lesson. And I think sometimes we repeat lessons because we don't learn it, but I learned that lesson. So I'm glad it wasn't an actual manic episode. I was dehydrated and I needed sleep. And I'm glad nobody got hurt as a result of it. But yeah.
And I'm sure that's an experience for many people, you know, and with what you're saying about this idea of delegation, for me as well, when I read the word, I always try and contextualize it to present day. And there's a scripture when Nehemiah is rebuilding the walls, but there was something unique about God giving him men to help him build, right? And giving him a task force to say, you're not going to build these walls on your own, right? You need people to do it with you, and I'm going to give you those people. And they did, and they built the walls, and that was a successful mission, a successful, So that's kind of, as you're speaking now, that kind of rang in my mind. Yeah. It's it reminds me of that. Even Esther herself, she needed, she was like, if I fast alone, it's going to be impactful, but not that impactful. But we have to do it collectively for it to have impact. So this is great. I mean, I'm sure Sean behind the camera is wrap it up, but we'll talk here all day. I feel like this conversation will just go on and on and on. But what for you, as the last point, building in New York, what would you say that feels like and what that looks like in 2026?
Building in New York feels right.
It feels
right. You know, because
Uh-huh.
I feel like if you build here, you could build anywhere. Yeah. And I just watched, did you watch the movie Devil Wears Prada?
Not yet.
The second one?
Not yet.
It's so good, too.
Not
it's
yet.
so good. But New York is the backdrop. Yeah. And you can see, there's just a energy here that is like no other. And I haven't lived everywhere.
Yeah.
But I do know that there's a pocket and a window. If you are only in New York for a certain amount of time, maximize it.
Yeah.
Right? There's just so many things to do, to experience, but to build, I think just the relationships and the network that you create and cultivate, you can take that anywhere in the world at any given time. Like, and say that you're from New York. Like, when you say that, it like just brings you higher. Like, you ever see a Knicks fan?
Yeah.
They like the energy, the audacity, all of that comes with building in New York. And I think, you know, we have a lot of haters across the country too.
Those New Yorkers with they always have comments, and you see the comment section.
I'll be like, not
they'll be like, with your shoebox
us.
apartments, and you'll be like, well, we love it.
We love it because we're outside. We just sleep in there.
We just sleep with the shoebox. Man, I love this city, and I've only been here for not that long, but there's such a vibrancy, and it's people like yourself that you meet here that remind you of the reason why you love it, right? And hearing stories like these for me just gives me so much energy and electrification. So thank you so much. And as you said, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Crystal Ferguson. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So everybody, I need you to subscribe, like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Vuyo Show. All right? Please? Today? Thank you.
That was so incredible. I hope that you learned a thing or two about what it takes to build something extraordinary in New York City. Crystal has done it, and I think you can too.
I think
so. What are you waiting for? This is The Vuyo Show, and I'm your host, Vuyo. I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers for now.